All right, can you hear? Hello, check one, check one. Paul, oh, there you go. A little louder. My AV guy's telling me where to stand here. Oh, the camera. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the third 7 Pi 24 Empire State Chapter meeting. For those, this is our second time here at Sloop Brewery. It's a great venue, so we look forward to coming here every year. This is somewhere we're going to go every year now. I didn't do anything. Check, check. Okay. It's good? So thanks, everyone. So want to introduce our sponsors tonight, some of the key people here from the board that helped us get here tonight. So Schneider Electric, I know we have some ASCO folks here, so thank you for your support, even though it didn't come from you, but I'll give you props. RDMC, Mark Welty's in the back. Thank you so much, Mark. Long-time relationship, great people at RDMC. BTEC, I don't think anyone came. There was a little miss-up with Mike Phillips, but a lot of love for Mike and BTEC, and appreciate their sponsorship, and we'll get him next time we have a meeting. Now I want to switch to the board members. So I'm Dan Moore. I work for Cyrus One. I'm the president of the chapter. Really been me, Neela, Rudy, and Joe Maggio's at another event today, but we kind of revitalize this. There were some folks that said they had been to previous meetings with this chapter a couple years ago. So we put a lot of effort to revitalize the chapter, get it going. This is our third meeting, so we're about a year old. And I really want to give a big shout out to Neela Smith from Quality Uptime. Neela's behind the curtain doing all that stuff that makes everything go. That's Neela. Rudy Kraus from Vi Technologies. Rudy's been on here since the beginning. Thank you. Then we had to go out and we had to get some muscle. So we, our MC for the night, our DJ, Paul Peterson from JLL, joined us to help us out. Then we had to go get even bigger muscles. Joe Zabo from Protective Power Systems. Thank you, Joe. And then we had to get a pretty face, because you can't do nothing without a pretty face. So Mario Manzano from Covets. If that face don't sell, I don't know what does. It's the hair. It's all about the hair. Mario got more hair than I got, so. So we're gonna, Paul. So we just want to talk about tonight's agenda. Just our introduction here. We have some great content. Andrew Graham, who's a member. We'll talk to Andrew soon. Seguente. In Italy, it's called Seguenta. But we'll talk about that. Andrew can talk about that later. So this is some cutting-edge technology we want to expose our members to. And get their awareness of what's coming down. And this is what my customers are demanding. So this is apropos for the time that we're in, is how do we get higher densities in the footprint that we are within our data centers? This is definitely top of mind for customers right now. For those of you who are not aware of WIMCO, we have a great introduction there. We actually have the two head folks in WIMCO, Women in Mission Critical Operations, is what the acronym is for, and it's great to see some women in the audience, so thank you very much for coming. In Albany, I think we had 2, and I think last time we were here, we might have had 1. So this is great. We want to get the word out. We're going to have Karen Petersburg and Lillian Rivera talk to us about WIMCO, what the mission is, and what they're trying to do across the country. Great topic. And we need, not only do we need more folks coming into the industry, we need to show young women, and I have 2 daughters, so I want to show them as well, that this is an industry that is just taking off, right? And there is tremendous opportunity in this industry, so maybe get them on a path, STEM path, or whatever path they may take to get involved in the data center world. So we had to take a pinch hitter here for Elizabeth, but we will talk about the building lifecycle asset, WBLCA for data centers. Elizabeth got injured and was not able to travel. So as a pinch hitter, John Rockwell is here to talk to us from Bala about the topic. I don't know, we'll judge if he does as good as Elizabeth would have done, but. As you all came in, we gave everyone a ticket for a free beverage. Please help yourself to partake in more. We'll have some breaks throughout the night. We also have raffles that everyone should have gotten. That is for all these great donations various folks have given us. So thanks again. I won't do it justice, so I'll have Joe give me the list of folks, make sure I call them out properly and give you thanks later on. So we'll do that at the end of the night. But if you're not here, you got to be here to win it. So hopefully you stay to the end. For those that have been around a couple of these events, we put too many speakers, too much content, we felt. So we're trying to keep the content, I don't want to say light, but not as many speakers to give it some breaks. And it is always difficult to wrangle folks from the bar. So we'd appreciate it if you want to go get another drink, please do, and come back in here. That'd be great. It just cuts down on some of the timing, right? In Albany, the bar was in the back, and we got too many feet. That was, well, different story, but Keenan was back there. He was loud. We got to calm him down. We had to calm him down. All right, so that's what we have, folks. Thanks so much for coming, and I am going to turn it over to Andrew Graham.
Thank you all for the warm welcome, and really appreciate 7x24 Exchange and the Empire chapter here welcoming us to come and speak with you about direct liquid cooling technology, especially why we're cooling ourselves off with some direct liquid cooling technology right outside. And I love the environment here. We got pipes going, we've got fluids flowing through the pipes. You know, this is definitely our world in the data center, right? So, you know, I'm Andrew Graham. I'm recently joined as head of sales for Seguente. We are about a year-old startup, and we've developed new passive direct-to-chip multi-phase cooling. I've been involved in the data center industry for over 30 years, providing consulting, design, engineering for mission-critical build-outs. For the last 10 years, I was very focused in airflow optimization and containment systems. So I really understand the limitations of air, and I really understand that we've reached the inflection point with what we can do with air, and now is the time for direct liquid cooling. Curious by a show of hands, how many folks in the room have had any involvement with direct liquid cooling, and that could be immersion, that could be direct to chip. So glad to see a few raising their hands, and we certainly welcome your input. I'm going to be covering a few slides here on the current industry, on the current market conditions, some of the problems that I know we all face with airflow, as well as with implementing direct liquid cooling technologies. And then after we get that, we're going to show you the highlights of what we've developed, and we're going to follow that with a video that was actually launched on March 11th on Bloomberg TV by someone we probably all in this room know. Ted Danson runs that show for Bloomberg TV. So, you know, going to talk a little bit about the problem and the market opportunity, and, you know, data processing and storage just continue to grow exponentially, while inefficient energy management systems continue to plague us with high operating expenses and higher carbon emissions than we'd want. The average PUE is 1.57 in our industry. I've been involved for a long time. I know that it came down significantly from 2.5, but honestly, it's flatlined for the last several years. And cooling still is consuming 55 to 60% of the server energy. So there's a tremendous opportunity here. Meanwhile, the server industry continues to grow. It grew at 17% last year to $112 billion. So we have an opportunity here to make a major impact. The data center construction market, we might as well look at that. It's very strong as well at $47.2 billion in 2021, and expected to grow to about 10% a year and grow to $75 billion by 2027. Cooling construction, as you see with this chart over here, represents about 40% of the market. So it will represent about $30 billion in 2027, and about half of that is expected to be direct liquid cooling technology. So there'll be about a $15 billion spend in a market that's relatively small now. And taking a look at the direct liquid cooling market, it was estimated at about $2 billion by Data Center Knowledge in 2020. Now, even though that number may be somewhat skewed, because I think they've included some close-coupled cooling solutions like in-row coolers, rear-door heat exchangers, but it will grow more rapidly now with the chipsets and the hardware that we're seeing come out, and really every marketing agency out there, Mortar Intelligence and others, expects the growth of this market to exceed 25% in the next 5 years. And the medium and hot markets for this, well, it's here in North America, it's in Europe, Australia, Southeast Asia, and South America. And we'll take a look at the competitive landscape here as well. These are what the numbers look like on the chart on the right in 2017 and comparatively in 2020. And you'll notice that the two largest players up at the top are actually Dell EMC and Hewlett-Packard Enterprises. They made up 85% of the market in 2020. But it's a little deceiving because these server OEMs have represented many of the solutions that are on the market from suppliers like us. And that's single and two-phase immersion, chassis immersion, direct-to-chip, direct-to-chip with pumped refrigerant, direct-to-chip with chilled water. So far, there is no clear winner yet in this market. And we can consider that Cool IT, ZutaCore, and Submer, maybe some of the names you've heard of, have grabbed market share since 2020. And there's going to be several winning solutions, in our opinion, and technologies, including our passive direct-to-chip solutions. ASHRAE, the American Society of Heating, Refrigerating, and Air Conditioning Engineers. I'm sure many of you are familiar with them. They've been spending a significant time on this subject, and we've been working with them for the need for direct liquid cooling, as well as some of the engineering that needs to happen behind the scenes for it. And they've issued several white papers that maybe some of you have seen on the subject. One thing that ASHRAE identified in TC 9.9 is this inflection point that you see right here, basically stating that at 400 watts per processor, we've surpassed what we can do with air cooling. Sorry, I'm double-fisted here with a microphone, with a pointer, with a beer. Of course, liquid cooling needs to be separated from the IT. So anyway, Data Center Knowledge also ran surveys in 2017 and 2020, and 35% of the users at that time already had some direct liquid cooling deployed in their environment. And 70% of those surveyed said that they were planning direct liquid cooling to be part of their next build-out or facility design. Liquid cooling in the future will be done. There's just no doubt about it. And it's also worth noting that the two biggest deterrents for deploying liquid cooling were concerns about water in the data center white space and the cost of retrofitting existing facilities. I'm sure most of you have heard that water is the most effective heat transfer medium. No offense, beer, water is the most effective heat transfer medium. So why did we abandon water and move to air in the early 90s? Well, it was all about the risk of leaks and corrosion causing IT outages. Water is 24 times more effective than air as a heat transfer medium. And glycol, second on this list, 25%, PG 25, is 91% as effective as water, or 21 times more effective than air. Dielectric is normally much lower than other fluids as a heat transfer medium, at 10 times the effectiveness rate of air. However, what our engineers focused on is if we implement dielectric with a multi-phase thermosiphon-free IT cooling loop, all of a sudden dielectric moves up to 40 times as effective as air as a heat transfer medium. And it was this additional savings of water and energy while using a fluid that wasn't a catastrophic risk to ICT equipment that led our founders to develop our direct liquid cooling technology and thermal management solutions. We've set up our design offices in New Jersey, and we have a client innovation and experience center set up down in Melbourne, Florida. In our first year, we had positive net income. That's almost unheard of for a startup. And we've tripled the size of our staff. But we're not doing this on our own. Actually, we're relying on you, folks. The folks that are part of the data center ecosystem that support, build, implement, engineer solutions for the hyperscale and high-performance compute markets with our direct chip technology designed to work in any new facility or any existing facility heat rejection system. And we've focused on the law of energy conservation, which states that we cannot create or destroy energy. We can only transfer this energy. So that is our goal as energy and thermal experts, that any energy that you see coming into a facility like this, we're going to use it to process the IT, but then move that energy out of the facility without loss. And that will allow us to use this for other applications. So with water and power constraints slowing down the data center growth, you may have heard this, in critical markets like Northern Virginia where they've run out of power, and Arizona where, you know, a couple of years ago, the main methodology for cooling out there was evaporative or adiabatic cooling that uses a lot of water. Well, now the mind shift has started to change, especially with the global technology leaders and hyperscalers, such as Google stating that they want to be carbon neutral by 2030. We've heard Microsoft say that they want to be water positive by 2030. And in fact, Microsoft's already taken some action on that. They've stated that they're going to convert a data center in Arizona that today has probably water cooling towers, and they're going to go to an air heat rejection system. So what we haven't seen much of yet, other than that case, is a detailed plan on how they can achieve these lofty sustainability and ESG goals. Seguente does understand this, and with our closed loop liquid cooling, we don't use any energy to move the free IT cooling loop, and we reduce fan power by 70% or more. Data centers today use about 1.8 liters of water for every kilowatt used, and the power companies use about 2.1 liters of water for every kilowatt hour generated. The average 1 megawatt data center is using 6.78 billion gallons of water a year. Literally, this industry is using billions of gallons of water every day. It's not an endless resource, just like power isn't an endless resource. It's time to address these issues, and we feel like we're on the way addressing and helping the strategy to improve our sustainability. So the market trend in silicon power, well, it keeps escalating. Moore's law may have flatlined for a little bit, but it is back on track with the number of transistors on a processor doubling every 2 years and the number of power consumption by that processor doubling every 2 years. The ICT industry understands that we must cool the equipment now, not the room. That we've passed that bridge. But Seguente is reaching further to remove already consumed energy and heat directly from these components. We're already seeing, CPUs approach 500 watts, GPUs at 700 watts, 1 UHPC chassis. We're showing here on this chart that they're 2,600 watts. Actually, we've seen equipment this week that's now 6.8 kilowatts in a 1U chassis. So all this means is it brings us beyond the capabilities of air, as identified by ASHRAE with that 400 watts per processor, and is identified by the engineers in our industry in ASHRAE, that we're really peaking out at about 20 kW per rack. So, where are we at and what does the future hold? Well, as I stated, air is still most widely used in data centers. And we've contained it to the hilt. We've ducted it to the hilt. We've done everything we can do to maximize on the efficiency of air. So what do we see happen next? Well, we saw some rear door heat exchangers enter the market. Passive and active rear doors that use the server hot exhaust air and actually cool it with a coil before it re-enters the room. So we played around with that for a while, and then we saw some, still air is the limitation there. We're still not going to get much past, 20, 30 kW of rack at max. So we saw some direct-to-chip solutions come out. We saw some direct-to-chip solutions come out where we put cold plates right on top of the server chipsets. These are your highest heat components in a server. And we run fluid through that cold plate, and that transfers the heat off of that chipset onto your cooling loop. Those cooling loops could be pumped refrigerant. Those loops could be pumped chilled water. So there were still some concerns and issues there, and we still needed some air cooling for the non-high heat components in the devices. So we saw some folks starting, some of the server OEMs as well as some innovators start to play around with single phase immersion, where we literally take the hardware and we submerge it into a dielectric fluid tank. That fluid flows out to a heat exchanger via pump and removes the heat from the facility. Then we saw some folks introduce two-phase immersion, where in the same tank, we're bringing with that IT hardware load the dielectric fluid to a boil. And there's a coil inside, or a pipe inside of that immersion tank that brings it back to condensate right within that tank. So, Seguente, actually, Seguenta in Italian means next or next level. And we are next level technologies. So we saw some interesting things that we could do with dielectric fluid. And we decided, rather than fully immersing and dealing with some of the issues there, that we would take and have a closed dielectric fluid loop with these direct-to-chip cold plates. So I want to talk about what we need to think about in planning direct liquid cooling. The process is the same as it's been for all IT applications, although this cycle often sometimes, I think I'm on a different slide, sorry. So we still need to make a business case for direct liquid cooling. Even if we have the large compute applications and the chip and server technology driving it, we must show that it improves our sustainability and total cost of ownership. Resiliency still trumps efficiency in this industry and probably always will. So our solution must be resilient while bringing efficiency along for the ride. There are many pros and cons to consider in deploying any direct liquid cooling technology, no matter what approach from the approaches that I showed you. On the pro side, greater efficiency is always going to lower our PUE and OpEx, which improves our sustainability. And if we're able to use higher heat rejection temperatures, that means we have less chiller infrastructure, and that's really the most costly to operate and maintain. The higher temps allow us to maximize free cooling days and operate low-maintenance dry coolers if we want. There are opportunities for heat extraction and reuse, as I alluded to before. And we can simply just use warm water from rear door heat exchangers or warm refrigerant from rear door heat exchangers as our direct liquid cooling supply, because you can do it at a much higher temperature. Some of the deterrents that we may need to address or cons, higher water temperatures can require specific cooling circuits or separate heat rejection altogether from our air handlers. There's been DLC vendor alliances and warranties. Well, they've been specific to the partnered server OEMs at this point. So that could be a challenge. In direct-to-chip only, a portion, up to 80% of the total generated heat is removed from the liquid, and air cooling must pick up that balance. Well, that could also be a con, that could also be a pro. If you have an air-optimized facility, especially if you've recently renovated it or upgraded it, are you ready to scrap that whole embodied carbon that you built and that whole investment? So direct-to-chip might present an opportunity to facilities that are looking to increase the longevity of their facility as we move to higher density. Immersion, there are some issues with optics and transceivers, and I've heard there are some workarounds around this, but it can alter the refraction index, meaning changing where the light signal's going. Fluids have a different physics than air, so that's where that comes in. And with immersion only, you have to make sure that the equipment that you're putting in the immersion tank can, over long periods of time, not break down or degrade sitting in that fluid. And that could be anything from the cables and hardware chips to the plastic containers and casing themselves. Sorry. Having more AV problems. Anyway, so the issues in planning direct liquid cooling, this is what you really need to think about. And again, the process is the same for any IT. Business requirements drive application development, which sets our IT specifications, which drives our facility design. Rinse and repeat that cycle. But what we need to think about is, are you going to be on-prem or hosted? If you're going in a hosted environment, you might not have much choice on what the cooling and heat rejection methodologies are going to be. Is it an existing facility, or are we looking to build greenfield? What are the total design load, and what does that equate to that you need at a rack load? No one wants to populate their data center with, a quarter of the space utilized for the IT. Everybody just views that as waste. Is there specific ICT hardware desired, and are there direct liquid cooling options available for it? It's typically a limited set of equipment from the manufacturers that offer these options thus far. And are there concerns of bringing water and refrigerants close to your ICT equipment? Can we alleviate that with leak detection or leak prevention? There are negative pressure systems that you can add to chill water loops so that if there was a breach in the line, you would bring in air into that line as opposed to leak the water or fluid all over your equipment. What power is available in the facility, and what is the distribution of it? And is there personnel available for your facility or part of your team that can work with the refrigerants in a direct liquid cooling rack or in an immersion tank? And on that same note, what floor and slab load ratings can be supported? That's really key, because even if we have a rack that just has a little bit of fluid in it, or we have a full immersion tank, you're talking about some significant weights. There we go. So here's a look at actually our technology. Seguente, as I said, has been focused on a passive dielectric fluid loop, and we're looking to take this to over 100 kW plus per rack. This offers a high energy efficiency, PUE of 1.02, and this is a water-free, pumpless liquid cooling loop. The IT actually provides the energy to drive the fluid in the system. So if you look down here, what you'll see is this is where your chip is, and this is where our cold plate resides, at the evaporator section of our cooling loop. So the chip and the energy from it is actually bringing this fluid to a near boil. We don't go to total boil. And this initiates our thermosiphon, which takes that mixture, that fluid mixture, up to our condenser. And the condenser then brings it back to a fluid. So no energy required. We're using the already consumed energy from the chip to do this refrigeration cycle. And then the cold plate heat exchanger can work with any heat rejection system that you have: glycol, chilled water, DX, or even dielectric to dielectric. So this is a zero maintenance solution using eco-friendly, low-cost cooling fluids that have low global warming potential and low HFCs and extended product life cycle. You're looking at 3 times the longevity of your ICT equipment. And it's higher reliability because we don't have any moving parts, and it's easier to deploy in existing and new facilities. So if we take a look at the actual server hardware, now our plan actually is to deploy globally and to pre-integrate in racks. So our cold plates, our downcomer and riser tubing that you see here would be installed at an integration facility, and our quick couplings. And we would also pre-install it in a rack. Our manifold, our cold plate heat exchanger, and our IoT. So if we look at the images here on the right, this is actually a side-by-side of the same HP 1U server. And you'll notice that our cold plate that's sitting right on top of the chipset is actually a lower profile than the air heat exchanger that the server OEM puts in this equipment today. So we remove this air heat sink and we replace it with our cold plate heat sink. And you'll also notice that there's some flat copper tubing in here. Well, a lot of servers actually have either a dielectric fluid loop or even water that is cycling some of the heat in this equipment and dissipating it so that it doesn't build up at the chip. So for those folks that have water allergies or fluid allergies near their IT, they don't want their beer this close to the laptop, dangerous things can happen. Well, they need to understand that this has already been happening in this industry for many, many years. We're just taking it to the next level. Hey, that means Seguente, doesn't it? Anyway, so taking a look at our software management tool now, we have a passive CDU, meaning no pumps. So we are flowing fluid through it and exchanging it to the facility side, but we also have IoT in there that is gathering information on the flow, gathering information on the temperatures. This enables accurate monitoring of your system and manages the thermal energy flow, plus other key variables about the server, the rack, and room levels. We're talking directly to the IPMI chipset in the server. And we have an AI-powered software stack. And that AI-powered software stack is actually showing this dashboard to you. And this dashboard is showing all those metrics I just named, plus it is showing carbon savings, water savings, and power savings that you're obtaining, that you can show to your leadership what you're saving, and it's all documented. And this is really what we need, because this is the only way you're going to drive actual solutions to these lofty ESG and sustainability goals. So it's a highly scalable solution integrated with the customer's software stack, so we can integrate very easily. It's open API. We can integrate with your DSIM tools, your monitoring tools, and your optimization tools. And this is what the whole package looks like. So, you know, it's our cold plates, it's our riser tubing, it's our quick couplings, it's the rack, and it's the AI software. And the plan is, again, global pre-integration services as well as support and technical services. So here's where the rubber really hits the road. Because we're not using any energy and we're not using any water, this solution for this IT cooling loop, not the entire facility, I want to make that clear, we have a 95% OpEx reduction. We also have a 40% CapEx reduction. You ask why? Well, we're using higher density servers, so we need less of them, and we need less space. We don't use any energy, so our PUE is 1, close to 1, and our water usage effectiveness is 0. We expect a high market adoption of this solution due to its flexibility, simplified BOM, and how it meets these ESG goals. So here's our commercialization pathway. We are right here, pre-production phase. We've done many proof of concepts. We have orders for actual deployments. Right now we're on schedule doing quality testing and validation, and our plan is to launch fully commercially end of Q2 this year. So, as I think I mentioned, DLC or Seguente with our direct lit to chip passive technology and multi-phase was featured on March 11th on Bloomberg TV, a show hosted by Ted Danson. So Ted Danson has gone from, as Mayday Malone, we brought him back. He went from serving up meatball pitches to the Yankees to serving direct liquid cooling to patrons at Cheers, to now serving up direct liquid cooling to the ITC industry. He's come a long way, that guy. I think I have too. And this is just one of the many things that we have going on. Obviously, we appreciate being part of this meeting, and we have many more national and local events planned for this year. Our CEO, Luca Amalfi, who's from Italy and is a PhD in thermodynamic engineering, he won a leadership award at Internet 2.0, and we were also recognized by Innovator Magazine as a top 100 innovator. We're going to be at other 7x24 Exchange events, Open Compute Project, iTherm with IEEE. But what I want to show you now is this video. It's about 6 minutes long. You'll actually get to see and hear from some of our C-level staff, as well as Frederick Ekstrom, who was the president of the Brazed Heat Exchange business unit at Alfa Laval, who probably many of you are familiar with, and he was recently promoted to CFO. So we're going to show this video, and then I'm interested in hearing from you, especially the folks who have some experience with direct-to-chip or direct liquid cooling technologies, including immersion. What have been some of the issues that you've seen? Would love to answer any questions, of course, about what we presented here today. So if we could roll the video here.
information and communication technology sector has experienced massive growth during the last few decades. As everyday applications and connected devices continue to drive data processing and storage demands, an increasing awareness of the sector's potential environmental effects is being brought to light.
It's a sector that's really at odds with itself. We have a rising demand of digitalization, and at the same time, we need to reduce our carbon footprint. And clearly, when a data center uses about 20% of all the power we will generate by 2030, we need to be energy efficient.
It is extremely important that information and communication technology sector align with the ESG goal, environmental, social, and governance goal. The key enabler for this transition is really to decrease the energy consumption for data centers and telecom central offices to be able to reduce the OPEX as well as also cut the carbon emission. Increase the compute power, enabling and supporting AI and high demand workloads for these high performance compute application.
As sustainability goals become increasingly challenging to navigate, the rapid growth of technology is placing even more pressure on stakeholders throughout the industry to deliver.
It is challenging to meet the ESG goal because of data centers. They normally consume high energy because of their inefficiency across multiple length scale, from cheap servers to room level. Also, there is no right space utilization, which means we are not really able to effectively use the floor space in which the compute is built.
Well, technology development, when you're trying to solve complex problems, is seldom about one company. It's about partnership. Because technology is made up of two parts, one which is the system and one which is the component. And both are equally important.
To manage the rising heat dissipation for data center hardware, demanding workloads and higher power processors often require thermal performance that exceeds the air cooling limit.
This solution has worked well when processor powers were managed, where rack power densities were maintained at relatively low levels. But in the last couple of years, we've hit an inflection point. Fundamental challenges at the semiconductor level are forcing chip makers to increase the power levels that are being dissipated by the processors. At the same time, we have a burgeoning of new applications that require significant processing power.
Air cooling method is inefficient because the air is a poor energy transfer media. The thermal capacity is not only very extremely small, but also it takes up a lot of space.
Now, novel energy and thermal management solutions are allowing for improved data computing platforms and services.
So our technology doesn't use any water, and our technology doesn't use air, and therefore it's highly energy efficient. And it doesn't have any moving parts, so it doesn't require any maintenance.
Our liquid cooling solution can literally address any data center, existing or new data centers being built. And the technology exists today and can be applied for any future generation of microprocessors or CPUs or GPUs coming out in the next generation. We have the solution now and for the future.
Designed to optimize thermal performance and ESG, Seguente's energy and thermal management solutions are helping businesses to reduce their energy consumption and costs while reducing carbon emissions.
The direct-to-chip multi-phase cooling technology has a unique approach by leveraging fluid in phase change to be able to drive passive flow circulation. It's a technology that is capable by cooling the chips by themselves.
By offering the serviceability and usability of the direct chip cooling technology, we don't use any water, rather a dielectric refrigerant that is friendly with electronics, and generally offering a high-performance thermal solution, which will help the ICT industry to scale into the future.
Coupled with high-performance evaporators and condensers, the thermosiphon loops enable a scalable cooling system that operates with high thermal performance without the need for active mechanical pumping.
We use a lot less power to cool the actual data center, but it also does some other things. It actually allows us to save a lot of water. The data centers don't have to be so large anymore. But more importantly, it also allows us to recover waste heat. And waste heat is a valuable resource of power. In fact, some of the high-grade heat we get from some of the data centers as a form of rejected heat can be used to distill water. They can be used to heat comfort spaces, but even in some cases go to a new process called ORC to generate energy again.
Addressing digital transformation demands with solutions that cultivate sustainability and enhance technological innovation is helping to improve energy efficiency, costs, and sustainability across the industry.
Densification of compute systems that will be enabled by advanced thermal management technologies will allow us to unlock more performance from our compute systems. It will allow us to put compute in places which weren't possible before, or levels of compute that weren't possible before. And so it can play a very strong role in not only improving the environmental profile, the sustainability profile of the ICT industry, but also deliver more digital services to the user and to our growing digital society.
Our cooling technology will play a significant role because it will allow hardware to be fully scalable by reducing energy consumption and carbon emission. So this will be an important step to be able to ensure a net zero society.
They probably said it a lot better than I did, but really appreciate everybody's time. Hopefully everybody learned a little something here, even if you're not involved in mechanical cooling systems for data centers. I do want to open the floor to any questions, concerns, thoughts anybody might have.
Take the microphone. You know what the microphone's going across. I'll repeat your question if anybody can't hear it.
So when it's time for a technology refresh, can you do that without taking the entire cabinet cooling system down?
Well, if you're replacing all the devices in the cabinet, right. But an individual one, no, we wouldn't have to take the whole system down, not at all. We take the quick couplings off of that one server and do whatever work we needed to do on that one device.
You folks?
They can use any cabinet they want, but we have to make sure, and that was one thing I didn't cover here, is we actually have a design tool. So you tell us what your application is, you tell us what ideal IT hardware you want to use. Hopefully it's somebody we're already partnered with so that we can have them involved in the pre-integration of the cold plates, the tubing, and the quick couplings. So that design tool, and it's scalable. We don't have to fully populate a rack day one. The servers will come with a base level of the dielectric fluid in there. And the passive CDU actually can have an accumulator in there. So we do need to know what your potential design limit is, and then we design to that with the hardware you want to use today. I could see a quick coupling going bad at some point, but really the system is designed to outlast the IT hardware. Appreciate your questions. Dan?
Just curious, how many manufactured chipsets are available today that you think would deploy your product?
I'll have to get back to you on the answer to that one. It's not the entire chipset product line, and as you know, there's new chips coming out every day, and we are trying to get on the forefront of this, right? So we're working with some of the chipset manufacturers directly and finding out what they have coming down the pipeline. I mean, I've seen Intel is actually, rather than use cold plate technology, they're talking about having chips that actually have the flow right through the chipset. So we're not going to have that little bit of loss that you have transferring from the chip through the cold plate to the fluid. The fluid will take it directly right off the silicon at that point. Sure. We're going to offer multiple methods of deployment because we realize that not everybody's facility is the same, not everybody's procedures are the same. This is probably something that I should have covered on that thoughts page. But the ideal way we feel to deploy this is the hardware is pre-integrated at an integration facility. Could be the manufacturer's facility, could be a third-party facility. We're talking to them all. And the rack, the servers can be installed in the rack, and the manifold would be installed in the rack. The passive CDU would be installed in the rack, but the passive CDU also could be installed above the rack, either in a service tray. It does have to be higher than the IT equipment, the passive CDU, for the thermosiphon technology loop to actually work. But the pre-integrated rack would arrive at your facility, and then our service personnel would arrive at your facility. You have to realize we're crossing disciplines here as well. So there's mechanical people that need to be involved, and there's obviously IT people that need to be involved, and there's facilities and operations staff that need to be involved. So we bring all those teams together and come up with the integration plan. So we can have the rack fully assembled and arriving at your facility, but you still need to bring the chilled water loop or the glycol loop to our cold plate heat exchangers, so that integration work would absolutely happen on your facility. Rudy? So no chemicals will need to be added to the dielectric fluid, and it does not need to be polished or anything like that. The longevity of the fluid is about 15 years, so you would have to change it out at 15 years. Now, our AI is doing that performance monitoring and telling us the flow. So if there was some kind of breach in a line or something like that and you lost fluid, you could run into a critical issue where you'd want to shut down equipment because you don't want any of this having a dry out. Anyone else? Correct. Do you have an idea of the sweet spot of where that's at to make this function? Our sweet spot is actually much higher temperatures than you would expect. You know, we're up in the 100-degree Fahrenheit as an input is what we're looking for, and that's where I did mention that in a lot of these scenarios, and I saw a very interesting video this morning. I don't know if anybody else has seen this video. Dell partnered with PhoneP and NTT in India, and they air optimized their facility. So it spoke a lot to what we covered in this presentation. Then they brought in some direct-to-chip, and they were using, I think a pump refrigerant system. But they're taking, because they have rear door heat exchangers, so off of the air side, they were taking the fluid from those rear door heat exchangers and feeding the direct-to-chip loop. Because in their scenario, just like ours, they're looking for warmer input temperatures. So those are the kind of things that we can do. So if you have, 55, degrees is typical chilled water temps that we see. And our system probably isn't going to want to see that temperature. But we can design it so that we take, some fluid from rear door heat exchangers or another application and mix that in to bring our temperature up to where we need it to be. All right. I really appreciate the questions and the feedback. It, always helps.
Thanks, everyone. We're going to jump right into our WIMCO because we got folks remote. So we're going to just give us a moment to fire that up, and then we'll jump into the WIMCO presentation, and then we'll take a break.
Julie, I'll be right back. Okay.
Ladies, I'm not sure if you can see us because the laptop is sitting in the corner. So I apologize that you won't be able to see us as well. But we do have a room of people here. I just wanted to give you this time around. I wanted to talk about talking about WIMCO. I brought on the team from the DC chapter. So WIMCO is Women in Mission Critical Operations. These two women are all part of the international WIMCO and also have what I think and call the gold standard for the WIMCO program at the DC chapter level. So without, we've got Lillian Rivera from Bureau Veritas Primary Integration. We also have Karen Petersburg from Digital. So I will just jump right in because they're going to be able to explain what's going on in their chapters. The one nice thing about this is that you don't have to be in the Mid-Atlantic. You can be from anywhere in the country. I am part of this chapter, and I love it. I sign up every time for their WIMCO in the morning, and it's a great, great program. And you don't have to it's not just for women. Anybody can join it. Just give us a second while we pop you guys back up on the screen. Okay, so Lillian on the left. If you want to start with about your, we keep on losing. No, I actually want them to the screen. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. All right. Thank you for joining us. They've been sitting, watching Jeopardy and waiting for us. So Lillian, I'll let you start off because you're also involved in heavily in the international. She can tell us what's going on in the DC chapter as well as what's going to happen down in 7x24 in Florida at the international. Go ahead, Lillian.
I can't really hear Neela. Okay. Hello, everyone. Happy International Data Center Day. Nice to meet all of you here virtually. I can see some of your faces. We just wanted to talk a little bit about WIMCO and what we are doing here at the DC chapter. I have Karen Petersburg here. She's our DC chapter president and actually has been very active with WIMCO. We started a bunch of different sessions. We have Wake Up with WIMCO, which I don't know if you guys have heard of, but it's a virtual session that everyone can be a part of. We also have some book clubs. We've had virtual book clubs and a couple of other great WIMCO events. You want to add a couple of things, Karen? Some of the things we're doing and oh, you're still okay. Karen's got the kids, so she's on mom duty right now.
Okay. I think we're good now. Sorry about that. Thank you. Yes, so I know you guys are here probably to learn a little bit more about WIMCO. I think Lillian, you talked a little bit about Wake Up with WIMCO, right?
Yeah, I just said we've been having the Wake Up with WIMCO sessions for I would say 2 years now. Yeah,
about 2 years. That's right. Yeah, we started. It was pre-pandemic when we were planning our WIMCO sessions, and we were thinking, from the idea of, well, how do we bring people together? So we were trying to do a couple things. One was increase our membership, and two, increase the awareness of the organization WIMCO within 7x24. So we had this idea that, well, we'd talk to the women that we did know, and we'd try to hold events at everybody's office. And the idea would be, whosever office it is, it would be to pull in as many people from the office to come to the meeting. And so that way we were trying a little bit of a grassroots outreach effort in order to increase participation and get people, better connected in order to support each other. Well, and the pandemic hit, and we were sitting around with basically not able to do anything. And we came up with this idea, well, why don't we still meet, just do it virtually through Zoom? Everybody was using Zoom. And so the idea of Wake Up with WIMCO was formed, and through those channels, and because I don't know how familiar everybody is with Wake Up with WIMCO, but it's a really great way to provide networking opportunities as well as education to your membership. So what we did is we met with everybody who was quote unquote in the WIMCO group and asked if anybody was interested in presenting topics. And we went through and we talked about what everybody was interested in, and people volunteered. And next thing you know, they decided to run their own WIMCO session. And when they did that, Lillian had this great idea with the virtual aspect of it to have breakout rooms so that we could break out some of the conversations with folks in a smaller setting, which allowed for people to have relationship building opportunities, networking opportunities, as well as a deeper conversation around the topic at hand. And so these things, these Wake Up WIMCOs, we had about, was it once a month we did them, right? For the year. And they really took off. And it was basically, what, in 2020, was like the main things that we did as a chapter during COVID until people started to be able to be back in person again. So it was really great. Wake Up with WIMCO. And then what else did we do? We did.
And I mean, I would say the other thing is we formed committees, and we have a pretty set committee, a chair, a co-chair. We have events coordinator, a membership coordinator. So these people are liaisons to our board members, which is really helpful for our chapter. We've raised our membership. We have lots of events now because thankfully we've met a lot of women who are doers and like to contribute and help us out. And this weekend we're actually having a huge event at it's our International Data Center Day event. As you guys are having today, it's going to be a cloud run. It's going to be a 4.59K.
Yeah, 4.99999K. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a very very reliable run.
Right, a very reliable run. That's right.
Except it might rain on our parade, but we won't be hearing that.
Yeah, but a lot of the WIMCO committee members were part of this, and it's been really good for our membership, for our chapter. It's been bringing a lot of women to our events, which you all know that not too many women are represented in our industry. So I think it's a really good committee to have as part of your chapter if you don't have one right now.
And I think some of the biggest proponents of our WIMCO group have been the men, oddly enough, right? Somebody might think, oh, gee, that doesn't sound right. But, we're a small knit industry, and we lean on everybody. We lean on each other to grow, and we lean on each other to help each other lift each other up. That's a lot of each other's. But the fact that the men have been supportive, we've been able to be a really inclusive group and help each other, which has been really important as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I sign up for Wake Up. So I sign up for every month for the Wake Up with WIMCO, but the money gets donated. So tell a little bit about that.
Yes. So one of the things we like to do is that we like to take our proceeds. We make people sign up and pay so that they come to our events, right? And then they're held accountable. And then all the money that we collect, we do find an organization that's relevant in our local community, and we donate the money over to the charitable organization.
Yep. And generally, the WIMCO group's been targeting underrepresented and underprivileged communities or children within communities that are going into STEM programs. So opportunities to allow for a pathway into the data center industry, ideally.
Yeah. And that's also an advantage to us because then we're bringing awareness of our industry into these organizations as well.
Yeah, we're a big proponent of workforce development within the 7x24 DC chapter arm, and a lot of our committees they're focused on that as an underpinning of everything that they do. So it's a really important mission for us.
That's great. One last question, Lillian. Just let everybody know what you're got at 7x24 in Florida International for WIMCO, because you also work on the international team.
Right. So I'm on the 7x24 International Committee. I'm on the WIMCO committee, and all the great things that you see coming out of 7x24, there's a group of us that help make that happen. And this spring conference, we're going to have a panel discussion. We always have a WIMCO event at the spring and fall conference, and we're going to have a panel discussion, and I'm actually going to moderate that, and Karen's actually going to be on the panel as well as two women from Meta and another woman, Robin Daly. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Envirotrol. She's going to be on that panel as well.
Lily, I have a question. This is Dan Moore. Thanks again for both you and Karen for joining us tonight remotely. We do have some women in the audience, and we made a point of that because it's fantastic to see them in the audience, but how can they get involved locally? Where is the local chapter? Who can they reach out to? Just that kind of information. Can we share that?
So you're talking about our chapter or your
Actually,
chapter?
I can probably answer that one a little bit better. So the nearest WIMCO is the New York City Metro chapter, and for our area. And then it would be, I don't know if Philly has one or not, but DC
They
chapter, I bring these ladies on because they're the gold standard of WIMCO chapters. So as they've just displayed now, you know how well it's run. So, and again, you can, it doesn't matter if you are on the East Coast, West Coast, in the middle of the country, you can still join this chapter or any other chapter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you're looking for individual people, but generally speaking, if you're trying to get involved in a particular chapter, you should be a member, and then that's how you would reach out and find out who's in charge of the local WIMCO group to get involved. One of the things, at least it's a limitation within our chapter, I'm not sure if it's the same across the board. It might be, because I think we use all this wild apricot, but when you sign up to be a member of, you know, the main group, the main organization, if you want to be a part of something separate like WIMCO, they might have a separate listserv or something. So you want to make sure that you get on both so that you're aware of the events that come up. But generally speaking, we do send all of the events out to everybody, at least within the DC chapter. I'm not sure if that's the case everywhere.
Yeah, and I believe Philadelphia does have a WIMCO, because I think Janine Rapine, she heads that up.
Yeah, and I know the New England chapter, which is restarting back up, they think they're having their event tonight as well.
Mm-hmm.
They're also trying to do a WIMCO group, and I think Sarah Martin is who you'd reach out to for that one, and Heather Bocci for New York, and Janine for Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Yes, Heather Bocci or myself, actually, because I am part of the. That's okay.
Oh, sorry,
New York Metro. Yes, no, that's okay. No, Heather is running it. Yes. Is there any questions from the audience?
I was just gonna, while you guys are thinking about what you wanted to say, just wanted to mention some the other things that our WIMCO group does. We do monthly book clubs. We've been switching off from books to like something short, like podcast or an article, just to keep another way for us to have the social aspect of it. These are usually in person at a local coffee shop, and that's been a pretty good hit. And then the WIMCO team has also done a lot of our events as well, just our chapter events. They've been able to lead the event and basically come up with the idea, do all the legwork, and they've been very successful. We had a great speaker one time. That was a couple years ago. Had a couple great panel sessions. So it's been a lot.
And also from our WIMCO, we had our Young Professionals Committee get started as well.
That's right.
Which is another good committee to be a part of if you're under the age of, I think it's 35.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or less than 10
or
years
new to the industry.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been great. They've been doing happy hours, sponsored happy hours, so free alcohol for a couple hours once a month. It's been a big hit, as you can imagine.
Well, thank you very much for taking time out this evening and enlightening us of more on WIMCO.
Awesome.
Is there any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.
Happy International Day.
Yeah.
Night.
Good night.
Just one more quick plug here, real quick. Another nice, good read to pass along to anybody in your office. Pick it up, buy it for your team. This is Carrie Getz. She, about 6 to 8 months ago, wrote this book, and it's been very popular. It's going through the data center industry, so I highly recommend it. Jumpstart your career in the data centers. It's a breakdown of just like Data Center 101. It's great to give to people that are not familiar, and your children, your kids, anybody that's in school, just to give them a nice head up and get them involved a little bit more. Of course, you can get it on Amazon. Okay, well, thank you all. We're going to take a little break and come back in 15, and there's going to be some more pizzas coming out. And we really appreciate you coming in tonight.
ready to go? We ready to go? Hi, everyone. My name is John Brockwell. I'm an Executive Vice President at Ballot Consulting Engineers, and I'm going to start off with an apology. Our Sustainability Director, Elizabeth Larson, is out with an injury. She'll be okay, but she's currently in Bala's concussion protocol. It's not very sustainable, yeah. So I'm going to offer up my shot at this, but again, Elizabeth is our in-house sustainability director, and this is her passion. So today we're going to talk about whole building life cycle assessment for data centers. Over the last 12 to 18 months, there has been a tremendous increase in the interest in carbon accounting in data centers, and it's really, as you well know, it's the current buzz phrase in the industry, and it's only going to continue to be more and more explored. So a little bit about Bala. We are a engineering consulting firm headquartered outside of Philadelphia with offices in New York, Boston, Baltimore, and DC. You see the markets that we serve. You see the practice groups. Some clients know us as an engineering and consulting firm. Other clients know us as commissioning, and other clients use us strictly for operations, testing, and maintenance support. So our sustainability sector is something, it's a new initiative for us. It's about 2 years old right now, and it's really starting to get legs. So these are some of our services that we offer for engineering design for data centers. We have several different verticals, several different types of data center clients that we service right now. So I'm not going to read everything to you. Everybody can read. If you have any questions, please let me know. Commissioning, these are high-level overview of some of the services that we offer for commissioning, for our commissioning practice. Operations support, maintenance support for our clients. So we like to think that we support our clients from cradle to grave, from inception of the design through the turnover, through the operations and the life of the facility. These are some of our testing services that we offer. And again, we have distinct business units that focus on only these. Our engineers don't commission, and our commissioning engineers don't design. And here's our new initiative with sustainability design. Our focus is on energy efficient systems, and our concentration right now has been recently a big push in the holistic carbon-based carbon accounting, carbon mitigation, and net zero design and renewable energy strategies. So just a little bit about carbon neutrality, right? The goal is for everyone to reduce carbon emissions, and we'll talk about strategies to do that. And in parallel to that, we want to increase our carbon offsets. Why is this important? You can see here that throughout the legacy of a facility, you can see building operations is roughly 28%, of the global CO2 emissions in the data center sector, roughly 11% in building materials and construction, 22% in transportation, and the others you see there. There's numerous initiatives for legislation, the SEC Sunshine Act, Boston's ZNC zoning code, Buy Clean policies in California. So there's just an increased importance and stress in the industry on future legislation to help reduce our carbon footprint. And the goals are to annualize ESG reporting. We have commitments out there for 2040 to be carbon neutral, zero waste to landfill, reduce potable water use and consumption by 40%, and focus on smart building material selections as part of the initial design concepts. So carbon in buildings is tracked and spoken about in two different ways. There's operational carbon and there's embodied carbon. And what you'll see here down below is the life cycle process of a typical facility, from raw materials coming in being transported to the site, the manufacturing and construction on-site, transportation, and then occupancy and maintenance from an ongoing facility perspective. And then on the end of the life cycle of a project, you'll see demo, transportation of materials off-site, and they go to a landfill or recycle. So that's kind of like the life cycle of carbon in buildings. What's significant about that is you'll see the difference. Operational carbon focuses exclusively on the occupancy and maintenance during the life cycle of the building. Embodied carbon is the entire process of the lifespan of the building. So life cycle assessments, here's an outline of what is typically done as part of a life cycle assessment. You identify your goals and scope definitions. Each client has different goals and objectives. You go through the inventory analysis phase, identify what they have, right? The impact assessment, what's the calculations yield on carbon emissions, and then the interpretation phase. What do you do moving forward to reduce your carbon footprint? So what's the whole building life cycle assessment? It's really about carbon emissions in the building. Operational carbon, embodied carbon are the two aspects of the carbon emission analysis process. The whole building life cycle assessment, the embodied impact starts at the product stage, right? And they have different categories within each stage. So A1, raw material supply, we evaluate the raw material supply and then the transport to a site, and then what it takes to install, manufacture those materials at a site. So each stage here, you'll see A1 through A3, there's specific criteria. The construction stage, A4 and A5, and then the use stage, right? The operational life of a facility, and then the end of life stage, the C1 through C4. But there are specific categories, and each one has a subset of criteria that you need to investigate and check off and fill in some information and do some calculations to come up with your total carbon accounting. The operational impact is really focused on two major pieces of criteria: the operational energy and water consumption. Typically, the end of life stage and beyond the building life cycle stage is really not being considered at this point in time. We're really focused on evaluating what we have, not necessarily on and remove from a site. It's typically focused on the upfront, from the inception of a project through its design and construction, as well as the life cycle of the operations of the facility. The embodied impact is really the sum total of all the pieces here that you see, all the different stages. So it's all encompassing, including the operational aspects of the building. So you'll hear distinctions to be made between operational impacts and embodied impacts when talking about carbon life cycle. So here's a little more detail on each of the stages. Product stage, right? We evaluate the raw material supply, transport, where does it come from, how does it get to the site, and the manufacturing of those products. And then we move into the IT equipment, the MEP systems, structural elements, building envelope, the architecture, interior components, as well as the construction, site work, and construction materials. And then in the data collection phase, we're looking at the amount, quantities of the materials, et cetera. So during the initial stages of design, early stages of design, we'll look at the alternatives. Recycled content, SCMs. Can we put alternative products in the specifications? What's the construction efficiency? And can we do any off-site modular construction? All those play a part in improving the efficiency of the carbon content of a facility. The construction stage you see here focus on similar categories: transport, construction, and the installation process, materials, and labor, on-site equipment, on-site energy use, waste. So all that data is collected as part of the report. We We look at alternatives such as carpooling, driving efficiency training. What's the efficiency during construction? Can we optimize that? Recycling programs and renewables on site. So these are all aspects and elements of projects that are being considered today that maybe we didn't think about 10, 20 years ago. But it's here to stay. So we talked about the embodied impact on the whole building life cycle assessment, product stage, construction stage. All right, let's focus on the use stage, where we look at how a building, the energy systems within the building, we look at the maintenance programs, we review them for the systems that have been installed, for the mechanical and electrical systems. What's the status of repair? What's their operational efficiency? Are they replacing outdated energy inefficient equipment? Are we using refurbished equipment? So that's all part of the strategy for optimizing the efficiency and the operations of the facility. So we're focused on operational energy for a facility, as well as the operational water consumption and efficiency in operations for a facility. It's all part of the whole building life cycle assessment. So here's some of the analysis that is typically performed when you go through this. We're looking at the IT load. What's the total megawatts deployed? What's the average PUE? And we spoke about the average right now earlier in a presentation from Andrew. 1.56 or 7 is the average right now. So it can fluctuate anywhere from initially 1.8. Maybe year 2 it gets down to 1.2 for certain clients. Right? We calculate the energy efficiency, or the annual energy usage, and we'll look at the carbon emissions. So you can see down below, when we talk about carbon emissions in pounds of CO2 and metric tons, you know, we talk about the equivalency down below with cars on the road, the energy use that you see with homes, wind turbines, and the amount of forests that, acres of forest that we have available to us. And what we know is data centers are by far and away one of the largest consumers of energy, and so the focus is going to need to be how do we reduce our carbon content for each of the facilities, not just in operation, but also during construction. So you see the use stage here. Again, the various categories, I don't need to read them to you, but it's a very similar process for the use stage. Go through and analyze each of these sets of criteria. We'll identify during the course of design low VOC products, low GWP refrigerants, low carbon projects. We'll go through and review the efficiency of the maintenance programs. Do they recycle? Right? Preventative maintenance, what are they doing to stay out in front of it? Are they replacing any legacy equipment that is outdated and operating inefficiently? And then we'll also identify strategies for recycling and develop programs as such. So the carbon neutrality equation here really is the operational carbon minus the renewable power procurement, right? How do they buy their power versus the embodied carbon minus the one-time purchase of carbon offsets. And that's how you, ideally, you balance those scales and you get to carbon neutrality. So here's a high-level overview of the renewable energy procurement strategies, right? Most accepted on-site generation. And then how do you purchase your power agreements? Do you buy equipment, or do you just buy virtual paper power, right? And then that's typically in the RECs, and then you have carbon offsets associated with that. So those are the least accepted right now. Most renewable energy procurement strategies involve dealing with on-site generation. Some of the carbon offsets, carbon reduction, renewable energy, PPAs, RECs, carbon sequestration, right? Can you neutralize some of the carbon usage with on-site landscaping, planting trees, carbon capture? Can we capture some landfill gas as part of a project? And then there is the direct carbon removal, all part of the carbon offset process. And then corporate carbon offsetting, here's some examples we talked about earlier tonight. Google, you know, their project types, they've got many projects out there: landfill gas capture, agricultural methane capture, forestry projects. And Microsoft is out there as well, investing in various types of carbon offset projects. So these are just two of the industry leaders, but we're going to continue to see this trend in an upward fashion. So the best practices for carbon offsets they describe as Paver Plus: permanent, additional, verified, enforceable, real, plus additional co-benefits. So the goal is for permanent solutions that can last in perpetuity. They're additional to projects, and they have not occurred without the purchase of an offset project. Verification is important. It needs to be enforceable, backed by contracts or legal instruments, and it has to be real. It has to represent actual emission reductions that are not remnants or incomplete or flawed accounting elsewhere. So this is some of the buzz language that you're going to see in the industry that's going to become more and more popular as we move forward with carbon neutrality. How do we get started? Everybody needs to help define the scope up front, set the contract limits, and really it's an education process through seminars or events like this where everybody gets to further understand what this is all about. And then once everybody becomes, or there's momentum for everyone to become educated, all the stakeholders, then we're going to collect information and data that we're going to share openly within the industry. And then you see here, there's some tracking tools that are generic software platforms that people are using right now to track this data. Here's the overall, how do we achieve success? All right, define your scope, measure it, set a baseline and goals, test it, see if you test your reduction strategies, track your data over time, and then repeat. How can we help? And this really applies to everyone in the industry, right? Evaluate reduction strategies. Make sure that people are diligent in doing the tracking, the research, and the calculations associated with this. Reporting and data is going to be very important moving forward. Carbon offset procurement is only going to continue to advance. And then gradually we all become a trusted partner in helping everybody, all the clients out there, achieve their goals. Just a little bit about sustainability and climate change and ways to mitigate carbon emissions, right? The goal is to limit the global warming to less than 2 degrees C. Our action is to decline greenhouse gas emissions by at least 45% by 2030 and reach a net zero emission by 2050. So those are very ambitious goals, and we're all going to be challenged to play a part to contribute to hitting those goals. Sustainability and energy efficiency. These are just some of the methods that we use today, and we're only going to improve upon moving forward. Water reduction is essential. You're seeing it now with the use of more air-cooled equipment. Rainwater harvesting is becoming more and more popular on projects, and a lot of the designs are lowering humidity set points or eliminating humidification in data centers altogether. We're looking to reduce energy by increasing room temperatures, lowering humidity set points, or eliminate humidification altogether. Use lighting controls. A lot of data centers run dark, run hot right now, and use high efficiency equipment wherever possible, whether transformers, UPSs, or mechanical equipment as well. LED lighting is standard today, and we want to focus on getting free cooling for the mechanical systems wherever possible. And we're also using CFD models to prove out some of our energy reduction strategies. And again, it's very common now for hot aisle, cold aisle containment, fundamental in data center design, it's essential. So here's some of the sample deliverable for whole building life cycle analysis assessments, right? Charts and graphs, compiling all the data that we've assembled throughout the beginning of this slide deck that you see here with a report that shows measurable data that's trackable over time. Here's some of the organizations. LEED was popular, has been popular for quite a while, but you're starting to see new sustainability and energy efficient other organizations like WELL, Building Standard, Fitwell, Zero Energy Certification, Passive House. They are all ascending and becoming more commonplace in our industry. So that's it. It's quick tonight. I apologize again for Elizabeth not being here, but if you have any questions, I urge you to reach out to her directly or let me know if you have any questions, and we can certainly circle back with you. Any questions?
That's something that's being mandated by government entities, or is that just something that you're seeing valid clients come forward and say, you want to start calculating what ESG is and that reports on?
It's really, so the question was, are ESG reports mandated by some AHJ, or is it just good practice? And right now it's been good practice. There hasn't been a lot of enforcement on it right now, but we include it as part of our deliverable because it's a nice executive summary type package that someone can point to and refer to quickly.
I can add that customers are demanding it.
That's another way to say that, yes. Right?
Like our customers, like co-locate, like hyperscalers.
Right.
It's required.
All the other requirements you gotta meet.
More client driven than AHJ driven. Any other questions? Thank you.
So, a couple of housekeeping items. We're done early. Thank you, John, so much for that. Andrew as well before. So we have raffle, the 50-50, and a couple of discussion points about our future next steps, et cetera. So I handed out a couple extra drink tickets. So if everyone wants to go get that drink and come back over, we can do the raffle and the 50-50, and then we can call it a wrap for the event, and then let people hang out and do what they want to do afterwards. Sound good? All right. That's a winner.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Neela, let's go over there. This is your orange ticket. Your orange ticket. So I'm going to start out real quick. I'm going to give a shout out to the folks that donated. Quality Uptime Services, Cummins, Hopek, Milton Cat, Kinsley, and we got some swag bags for everyone that's here as well. Before we leave, there's some swag bags. Cummins, ULB, Hopek, Van Tran, Dranitz, High Tech, Kinsley, and Richards all donated stuff to the swag bags. So this is the orange ticket. We are going to call for the first. Want to go that way? This is the Kinsley Bourbon Basket. Kinsley. 567 are the last three numbers. 567 are the last three numbers. I gotta check my own. Five, six, seven, going once, going twice. All right, we'll pull another number. You're still in it. You're still alive.
5559.
5559.
All right, this is it. 5564.
5564. Holy cow. Anyone take statistics here before? I think our probabilities are increasing here.
All right. Some more fives. 5552.
5552. Whoa. Great. We'll do Cat. So Cat provided a lunch bag or a cooler bag. I should say. That's a big lunch bag, I guess. A cooler bag with a bunch of Cat swag. So it's okay for the other generator folks. If you don't want it, just don't say your number is called, okay? It's allowed. We won't know.
They secretly want it. 5585.
5585. All right. Next, I think Kinsley got that number, but he wants it.
5553.
5553. I can't have it. Oh, you won that? All right. Cat doesn't want it.
Something else then?
Actually, you know what? You won. Would you like to pick another one of these gifts? I think that's a fair thing to do. The Hopkey one? Nope. That's fair. Yeah. Oh. There's one less to give. All right, so we're back to the cat swag, cat bag.
Okay, 5556. 56.
All right, we're not giving you two things. I think you need to go play the lottery tonight before you go home.
All right. Last three, 562.
562.
562. 558.
That's a good sport. The Kohler guys took the cat bag. Quick, take a picture. Hold it ransom later. All right, so we are going to go to the Cummins box, or I'm sorry. Cummins has scotch. I could butcher this if I tried to say it. So, Lafroy. See how much I drink scotch. Lafroy. And by the way, I do take cash on the side, so if you really want.
570.
570.
$568.
You take it?
These are orange tickets, right?
Yeah, they are.
Looking a little red here in the blue. 561.
Maybe it's today. Hold on, let me look at it. How many people actually left? I feel.
Yeah, really. That's my bad.
There's a whole lot of losers that left. Let's just say that. They a lot of. Oh, they're at the bar. It's even worse.
This was mine. I don't think that's fair. I just pulled my own number. So I'll just.
Look at the integrity of this woman. Neela's the best.
It was my number. 584. What? All right, that was my bad.
It's got to be coming soon.
All right, it starts with a 5. 557.
Pat Rowland, Falcon. A nice scotch for you, sir. All right, last but not least, the Quality Uptime Services. It has bourbon, beer, wine, basket. So it's a little bit of everything. Yeah. What we got?
It's actually a nice local bourbon from Rosendale, New York.
Widow Jane.
And the number is 569.
I'm going to check it out. All right, so thanks so much for the presenters, John and Andrew. Big shout out for John and Andrew. Thank you so much. Great job tonight. Thank you so much for our sponsors, Schneider Electric, B-Tech, and RDMC. Mark left. RDMC? Huh? So thanks for that. Thanks for all the folks donating again. Quality Uptime, Cummins, Hopek, Milton Cat, and Kinsley, and all the swag bag stuff from Cummins, ULB, Hopek, Van Trandranitz, High Tech, Kinsley, and Richards. Couple quick points. On the chairs were some cards. We can only do this if we continue to grow our membership. So we really need folks to join and become members. So if you're not a member today, we'd appreciate it. If there's any questions, if you have any contacts on the board, the website, you can reach out to any of us. We'll be happy to answer some questions, but really would like to continue to grow our membership base. The next point is we've been on a quarterly cadence of having events, and we've decided to do a larger event in September. We are going to be doing a skeet shooting event up in Pauling, New York. If you've ever done it before, it's fantastic. If you haven't, you're missing out. So we're going to do a skeet shooting event, trap shooting event, in September 13th. It's also on this card. So you can start thinking about reserving your spot for that, but we're going to need sponsors, right? We're going to have sponsors that are going to sponsor if you've ever been to a golf event, these are called stations and not holes, but sponsor stations, sponsor breakfast, lunch, sponsor, we're going to look at all the different options, but we need some sponsors. The sponsorship will come with, we're working on it, more than likely a foursome again, like golf. You have 4 folks in a car running around shooting that stuff. So big plug for that. We need some real support. So we're going to take a hiatus over the summer because there's going to be a lot of effort for us to organize. So the next time we get together will be in September. September 13th is a Wednesday, up in Pauling, New York, about half an hour from here. And more information to come. So if you're on a member list, if you're on LinkedIn with us, you'll get all the updates about the upcoming events. So again, we're all going to be here trying to straighten up, clean up. So if you have any questions about the board or anything else, we'd be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, thanks so much for joining us, and safe home.